My mentors are the reason that I'm in the chair that I'm in today. Every mentor I've had has played a very different role in my life that has all cultivated into who I am today.
One of the things I like about mentoring some of the up and comers is they keep that perspective fresh so that I know how to recruit and retain those folks into my own organization.
Mentorship can open doors, build confidence, and create opportunities that shape careers. But what makes a mentor relationship truly impactful? And what can both mentors and mentees do to get the most out of the experience? This is Innovate by ICMA. I'm Angelica Waddell, and this is a very special SheLeadsGov interview all about mentorship. That's right. I'm joined by Paulette Hartman, City Manager of North Richland Hills, Texas, and Caitlan Biggs, Assistant Town Manager at Little Elm, Texas, and they will give us both the mentor and mentee perspectives today. Thank you both for being here today.
Thank you for having us.
Yes, thank you so much.
Let's start with Paulette. Would you mind describing your career path and the role that mentorship has played in your career?
Sure. So let's see. I started out my career in city government in the city of Fort Worth. I won't say the year, but it was a long time ago, as an administrative assistant in what was known as the Cable Communications Office at that time. And then I started my master's degree program at UTA while I was working for the city of Fort Worth. And then I came to work for the city of North Richland Hills the first time as assistant to the city manager. Larry Cunningham was the city manager at that time, and finished my MPA while I was working here then. And then I went from here to the town of Copper Canyon, which is in Denton County. Small town. It was a general law city. I was their first town administrator, and I was there for about 2 years. And then I went to be the city manager of Joshua, Texas, which is in Johnson County, just south of Fort Worth, right next to Burleson, which is where I met Caitlan. So I was the city manager there for about 7 years, and then I came back to North Richland Hills in 2014 as assistant city manager, and was promoted to city manager in April 1st of 24. So I've been the city manager here for just over 2 years, but been back here for it'll be 12 years next week, I think. Yeah.
Wow, that's great. Congratulations on that achievement. That's quite a good amount of time there.
Thank you.
And then Caitlan, tell us about your path.
Sure. So I started in the city of, I guess I actually technically started in Burleson. I got my first exposure to local government through a mayor's youth council and in high school. And I legitimately thought it would just look really good on my college resume. I had zero interest in going into government. I was going to be a teacher because you get summers off. And then I got into the youth council. I asked for an internship and I started working for the city. And I just discovered this love of public service that I didn't know existed because most teenagers do not understand how cities work. So then I went to college, ended up majoring in history. I've got my MPA from UTA as well. And I started in the city of Grapevine as an intern in the city manager's office for about 6 months. Then I got my first full-time job with the town of Addison, suburb of Dallas, in the finance department. And I remember that the last interview question for that panel was, 30-second elevator pitch, tell us why we should hire you for this. And I remember saying, I don't know much about municipal finance, so you can teach me the way you want me to do it. And somehow that worked. And then about a year later, I was promoted up into the city manager's office with the town. And in 2018, I took a lateral move over here to the town of Little Elm as the assistant to the town manager and served as the first one ever for the town. And then was promoted up to director of administrative services in 2021, combined with the town secretary position, and then was promoted to assistant town manager in September of 2025.
Great. So both of you have really awesome, extensive background in local government. Do you believe that mentorship has been a part of your journeys and your careers and your achievements so far?
Oh, yeah, definitely. I mean, I feel like I've had a lot of mentors along the way. I can't think of any formal, really mentoring relationships. but both men and women early in my career that encouraged me to pursue the next opportunity, those types of things. Also now, or once I became a city manager, it's more talking through with them about challenges that I'm facing, or issues that are just difficult to deal with, and helping me get through those, keeping in mind, my ethics and and integrity and all of that. So definitely, I mean, names that come to mind, of course, Karen Daly, who I'm still close with. Greg Vick is another mentor of mine. And then just folks that are really my same age, but I would consider them mentors and colleagues. David Morgan, Mario Canizares, Jennifer Fadden, who's now retired. Those kind of my close group of folks. I'm starting to name people and I'm going to forget someone, but those would be the names that kind of come to mind as far as mentors for me. Yeah.
It's a good reminder that your mentor does not necessarily have to be somebody that's older than you, or they can be your peers as well. How about you, Caitlan?
Yeah, I think my mentors are the reason that I'm in the chair that I'm in today. My very first boss in local government, Eric Cannon, he was the chief financial officer in Addison at the time. And he really just kind of identified something in me that I didn't realize that I had, that I actually do love numbers. Math is not scary. So he taught me a lot about myself and about how to always kind of be on point and be prepared for anything that may be asked of you. And then as I got into the manager's office, Ashley Schroyer, Mitchell at the time, now Schroyer, she really started to show me how to manage functions that you weren't a technical expert in. And that has been kind of a foundational element for where I'm at now, because I couldn't speak IT to you, but I can ask enough questions, to know what I'm talking about. So I think she was really helpful and critical in that. And then coming over here to Little Elm, I was really kind of in an interesting position with Addison, where I was trying to figure out what I wanted to do next. And Paulette mentioned that we met early on in my career. She knew little teenage, early 20s Caitlan. And I would have, those were fun days. And I just remember that, I would, anytime I'd call on Paulette and I just, I'm trying to figure out, I'm a generalist, how do I jump into the next position? Because usually it's a department head. And so we would have several phone calls and lunches and just discussions about, how to make yourself kind of marketable to different cities and how you can still gain experience, even if you are a generalist. And so I think Paulette was absolutely fundamental in how I was able to identify the things that I needed to do in order to get where I'm at now. And then being here in Little Elm, my current boss, Matt Mueller, he has just taken everything that I have learned and taught me how to lead it. And so he is responsible for the leader that I am today, and the ability to delegate things to my staff and to think, 30 feet ahead of them and behind them, and to provide the resources that they need. And so I think, we're going to talk a lot more about this, but every mentor I've had has played a very different role in my life that has all cultivated into who I am today.
Absolutely. And I love that we have the mentor-mentee dynamic duo with us today, with both of you here. And we also have some amazing comments here. Thank you so much. Loriana says, I've been fortunate to have mentors, coaches, and supervisors throughout my career, and each has shaped me in different ways. To me, they're not the same. Supervisors guide performance, coaches develop specific skills, and mentors invest in your long-term growth and potential. One of the most rewarding parts of my journey has been becoming a mentor myself and having the opportunity to pay that forward. Oh, thank you so much for sharing that. That's wonderful. And yes, Kelsey says, I haven't had a formal mentor, but my first boss in local government was key in taking the time to make sure that I was invited to important meetings and learning what he knew. It helped set me up to take over his role when he retired years later, because he had invested so much into my success. I would say that's a mentor, maybe not a formal situation, but definitely at least an informal mentor. I have one formal mentee that I work with and meet with monthly. Oh, that's fantastic. And then others who I just try to help out whenever I can. I love that. Thank you so much for sharing that, Kelsey. Karen says, yes, I have both mentored others and been mentored throughout my career, and it is very rewarding and has made a huge impact on my career. Also, shout out to Karen, Karen Daly. We're all saying hello. If you're watching, shout out. And then Sophie says, love that, Caitlan. Being honest in your elevator pitch is a strength in and of itself and even opens up to opportunities for career growth and mentorship. Thank you all for sharing your perspectives on that. And feel free to continue to give us your comments throughout this. And let me ask you the next question, y'all. All right, so let's talk about the big, broad picture next. In your opinion, Paulette, let's start with you. What impact does mentorship have on the local government profession as a whole, but especially for women in the field?
Well, I think it just shows you that any woman, especially, that you can do it. I think it helps give you the confidence. I think somebody who gets to know you can point out things to you that you don't see in yourself. That's definitely been true for me. I kind of like to mentor women who have children or wanting to have children and also wanting to be a city manager, because that was a thing that when I was starting out my career, frankly, people told me that you can't be a mom and a city manager. And so the best way to get me to do something is to tell me that I can't do it. So I did. I actually have 3 kids. They're older now, 24, 20, and my youngest is 16. But 2 of them were born while I was a city manager somewhere. So and my first one was born when I was assistant 2 here. So I think the mentoring relationship in that aspect helps you see how it can be done. It's not without its challenges, but it's possible. So.
Well, I love that. Listen, y'all, you can have a family and be a city manager at the same time. Wow.
Yes, there are many who have done it now.
Yeah, and what's your perspective on that, Caitlan?
Yeah, I definitely agree. I know that those are conversations that specifically Paula and I had because when I started, I didn't have any kids, didn't have a husband. I was just me. And the advice at the time was go network, go to the things, go to all the things, because at some point you're not going to have capacity to do it all. So start now. And I'm so glad that I took on that advice, because that's how I've gotten to know the people in this profession, is because I took the time to invest in it when I didn't have any other responsibilities. And now I have 2 toddlers that are 4.5 and 3, and there is no time. There's no time outside of the time at work. And even then, sometimes it gets taken up. And so I believe having the mentorship from Paulette and some other key people in those early years really helped me to build the solid foundation, so that when I did have kids, I kind of am able to, I don't want to say balance it, because I don't think we really do balance it. I think we just integrate it all together and we figure out what works for us. And so having those conversations early on, I think, has prepared me now to be able to do it all. And, people will look at you and you're like, well, how do you wear all these hats and, and have kids and be responsible? And I'm just like, because I had really great people early in life to tell me how to build the right foundation, so that when I got to this point, it wouldn't be shaky. So I think and especially for women, to Paulette's point, women that have kids, there's still this perception that it's just like, well, she can't be all here all the time because she's got kids. It's like, well, I do, but I also have a duty to this job, and I will bring my kids with me sometimes. We'll go to the events. They're integrated into this organization just as much as I am. So this idea of you having to keep all of this stuff separate is just very antiquated. So I'm really happy with just the advice that I've gotten to be able to kind of get where I'm at and feel like I can be a mom, I can be the executive, and I can meet everyone's needs.
Absolutely. We're all whole human beings that have different aspects of our lives and everything. And that doesn't necessarily mean that we have to be a completely different person just because we have a career. I love that point. I'd like to know from your perspectives, Paulette, what do you think are the barriers to mentorship? Why would people have a hard time getting into that type of a role?
Well, I think a lot of people feel like they don't have time to do it effectively. That's one thing that I think is sort of a self-imposed barrier on both sides. They convince themselves they don't have the time. That's probably the biggest one. And this drives some people, I think, that work for me crazy, but I'm not a big have a formal plan process really in anything in my life. So that's actually helped me out in the mentoring phase or being mentored, because I never felt like anything had to be formal. It's like Caitlan said, it's really just networking. And one of the things that's worked in terms of Caitlan and I have stayed, I don't know, in this kind of mentoring relationship for a long time, is that we don't have a set. I think it's good for those that do have a set time to meet a month or whatever. That's great if that works for you. But what really happens is, Caitlan will text me, or sometimes I'll text her to ask her a question or see how things are going, and then it'll result in a phone call. It's really not a formal relationship, and I think that's how you kind of make the time even more, because it makes it more organic, I guess. And the same thing with the folks that I consider mentors. We don't necessarily talk, have a set time. It's just when something is happening, I'll reach out to them, or sometimes they read that something is happening with me, and they'll reach out to me. And so for me, it's been about not having it be so formal, but just kind of be more organic, which starts with networking, which is it's important to do that, to establish those relationships.
Starting with networking, you can't network enough, really. And you mentioned that a little bit, Caitlan, earlier, is the importance of networking. But what's your thoughts on this question?
Yeah, I think to Paulette's point, I think the just perception that it has to be formal and you have to, have an hour set aside every single week. I don't really think it's about the quantity of the time. It's about being intentional with the time. I know some of the greatest conversations I've had with Paulette come when I'm trying to think about if I wanted to apply for another city, to go to a different job all throughout my career. And she would have a phone call, which sometimes would lead to a lunch, and it's, let's sit, let's weigh pros and cons. This is what I know about this city. Does this help you get to your goals? And so I think some of those are the best conversations we've had, are just contemplating kind of forks in the road. And so I think the time is kind of the biggest one, and then the formality of it as well. But then I think there's also this other part that I've been talking to a lot of young professionals. They're just scared to come talk to us. They feel like they're imposing on us, and that they don't want to take our time up. And what I really want early professionals, or really any tenured professional, to understand is, if there's somebody that you admire the way that they lead and they carry themselves, and the tact that they have and the savviness, I don't know many people in this profession that would ever turn you away. They would find some time to chat with you, even if it's not, a formal kind of mentorship hour a week type of thing. That's what this profession is about. It's about service, and it's about putting others before yourself. And so I would say that hesitation probably is one, and that's one that I just can't communicate enough when we meet with these kind of assistance organization groups, is shoot me an email, shoot me a text. Here's my phone number. Give me a call. I'd be happy to chat with you and discuss anything that you have. You're never going to take up my time. If anything, this is me giving back to the organization, because they're going to be the future of it. And so I'd like to be a part of, helping them get to wherever they might be wanting to go.
I love that advice too, because it's true that hesitation can be a factor. I've spoken to other local government professionals before on this. One thing I've also seen is people saying imposter syndrome can be a barrier. Let's say you're a newer to city management, and on the other hand, I've spoken to people who said, it'd be really helpful for me to really get to talk to someone who's been through the hiring process recently. But I think that's, again, where networking is so powerful. And I love this comment also, Danielle, thank you. I love hearing each of you speak about being a mom and being successful in local government. This is something I've thought a lot about as far as next steps and what that looks like for me. And then Jeanette, sometimes the best motivation is people telling you something isn't possible. Yeah, that's right. Thanks for being a role model for all the women in local government who are also starting and raising families. Thank you, Paulette. Thank you, Caitlan. Yes, agreed. All right, so we talked about the barriers. Now let's talk about the mentorship relationship itself. And again, it could be a barrier. Some people say, well, I don't have time for something so pie in the sky. But the reality is it's not pie in the sky. Mentorship is actually a huge advantage in your career, in any career. But there are ways that we can make mentorship practical and productive. So Paulette, what are your thoughts on making this a practical and productive relationship?
Well, I mean, I think it starts with, like I said, it doesn't need to be a formal, because that's when things fall apart, at least in my schedule, is if I've got a set time, like we're going to meet this day every month, inevitably something comes up that I have to deal with, either here at work or with my family or whatever the case may be, and I end up canceling. So making it a little less formal can also make it a little less intimidating. And also, I'll say that one of the things I like about mentoring some of the ones younger than me and the up and comers is they sort of they keep that perspective fresh. So of those folks that are coming up in the profession and what's important to them, so that I know how to recruit and retain those folks into my own organization. And so from that standpoint, it's definitely not pie in the sky for the mentor either. It helps you kind of stay fresh, not get stuck in your own sort of ways. And I mean, there's times I bounce things off Caitlan or, others that I kind of have a mentoring relationship that are younger than me, that I need to understand how this appears. I mean, I'm Gen X and I'm very Gen X. And so I have to understand how other people see the world and the issues we're facing, and how to present those, I guess, and how to recruit and retain, like I said, some of the young up and comers, because I do not plan to work forever, and there needs to be people fully capable as those of us who are a little older now retire.
I've done research in the past and discovered that one of the biggest things for retention is being able to see a career path in front of you. Mm-hmm. And one of the best ways that you can provide that opportunity for people to see a career path ahead of them is to prepare them. And by creating opportunities for mentorship, by mentoring others in your organization, that can really help them see the future for themselves, prepare themselves for a future of leadership.
Yeah, so I am now kind of in this transition where I'm on I get to be a mentor, at least to some people in my organization. And so while I haven't had the pleasure of working with or for Paulette, I'm still holding out hope one day. I do have the pleasure of mentoring kind of the up and comers in our organization. And so I've adopted this term that I've stolen from Abby Reese, who is the assistant city manager in Justin, Texas, and it's called strategically abandoning. And so I can't do everything. And so I had to start writing down everything that needs to get done, and then divide it into what can only Caitlan do and what can I strategically abandon to anybody else. And so our assistant to the city manager, he has gotten a lot of things that I've strategically abandoned, but what I have done with him is I don't just tell him what we're doing, I tell him why we're doing it. And we'll talk about council meetings and like, well, why did they pull this item, or why did they do this? Like, where's the discussion behind that? So I feel like mentorship, the practicality of it is also in those moments of not just like, hey, go do this one thing. It's like, but this is why we're doing it. This is the outcome we're trying to get to. And this is some history behind it. So it's kind of giving that full perspective to help them critically think about situations. To Paulette's point, at some point, we aren't going to be here, and we need people to be ready to take our spots, and being able to look at situations and not just see it at face value, but think of all the domino effects that can happen from this one situation. You learn that over time, and you learn that by being in the room and listening to people who've already been through it. And so I think for me, the practicality is within the organization. It's still not really a formal mentorship because he does not report to me at all. I just have a lot of things that I think that I could offer to him that I wish I would have had as an assistant too, of, a little bit more background and implications of this is what you're doing and this is why you're doing it. And just kind of building a full picture of something instead of just training them to do a task.
That actually gives people more agency in the organization and in the success of the initiatives and the tasks that they're working on, that they're helping you work on. And that really is a really powerful way to think about mentorship, as it can help you delegate. Like you both said, you're not planning on doing everything by yourself, and you're not planning on working forever. You deserve to have a fulfilling work life that's not completely burning you out. What advice do you have for people who are seeking a mentor?
Well, I mean, I think for me, it's probably the best advice is start with somebody maybe in your organization who you already know, and it can be your supervisor, or it can be somebody else that, like Caitlan said, you kind of admire, how they work, how they carry themselves. You respect what they've done already in their career, and you can just start it with a conversation. Ask a question, something that you're curious about. That's to me the best advice, because again, the more organic the relationship is, the longer it'll last. So don't be scared to ask the question of somebody.
That can go on a t-shirt. Don't be scared to ask the question. I love that. And then Caitlan, what advice do you have for people seeking a mentor?
Yeah, so I'm going to do a plug for, at least in the North Texas area, we have a group called the Urban Management Assistance of North Texas. And I think there are assistance groups around the nation that probably function similarly. But there is an event that they do that I think is incredibly helpful, like trying to foster some of these mentor relationships. And it's called Exec Connect. And that's where you have 12 to 15 city managers or assistant city managers that come and sit at a table, and early professionals can come and just ask them questions and talk to them, because I think that hesitation or maybe being intimidated is kind of that barrier to even asking the question sometimes, or asking anyone a question. So this kind of allows they're expecting you to ask a question. So this is your time to start picking the brains of all of these respected people in the area. And then from that, it is always, follow up with an email and say, hey, I'm so-and-so, I met you at this. I really enjoyed our conversation. Would you have some time? So it kind of just provides that opportunity for the door to open. That's what I did with Matt. He had presented, my boss, he had presented at a UMAN event back in 2014, 2015. And I just really admired just everything that he had talked about. And so I think I effectively sent him an email that said, I want to be like you when I grow up. How do I do that? And he just wrote me back like this novel that I still have that email to this day. And I was fortunate enough 3 to 4 years later to be able to work for him. So you never really know what door is going to open. But if you are intimidated, afraid, a little bit more on the shy side, go to networking events that are tailored to getting people to talk. And then I think you'll feel a lot more comfortable, and then you can kind of find someone that you connect with. Because it's not like I hosted interviews for, hey, come be my mentor. I didn't do that. I had a conversation with Paulette at something that we were at, and I was like, wow, she's a mom and she's a city manager and she's been all over the region and she's just so respected in her profession. I could learn so much from her. And then it was up to me to reach out and say, hey, could we chat sometime? I don't even think I asked you to be a mentor. I just was like, yep, this is what we're doing now.
Yeah.
So yeah, to Paulette's point, it doesn't have to be formal. It's really just someone you connect with that, you really value and respect their advice.
On the flip side of that, what advice for people who want to become a mentor, pay it forward in the profession?
I think, again, the easiest start is just somebody in your own organization who you see potential in, who they have interest in this career field, who you see, drive and ambition. Just start it with a conversation. And like Caitlan said, if you're giving them an assignment, explain to them a little bit more about what's behind that. Ask them if they have any questions for you. Just be open to the conversation. One of the things too, I would say, is invite those folks into meetings. So that's one thing I didn't mention Larry Cunningham, other than he was the manager that when I worked here the first time. But one of the things that he did is I was his assistant too, and he just basically said, you are me. So you're going to come to all these meetings. It started with budget meetings, and you're just going to listen, observe, take notes. But your job is to kind of be the sponge. That's how you learn. And so I think if you want to start out to be a mentor, invite folks to kind of shadow you, and be just be a sponge. That is really how you start to learn how local government really works, is in those meetings, and then give them the opportunities to do something. So another thing I started doing back then was just when he needed follow-up on something, or a department head would say, I don't really have anybody to look at that, or whatever the case might be, I would just volunteer myself and do it. And And so that opened up opportunity for questions and conversation with me and Larry, or me and that director, or whoever it might be. So as a mentor, it's important to give folks those opportunities to participate and learn, and then that generates questions and opens up conversations.
I'm trying not to like give the exact answer that Paulette just gave, because that was a phenomenal one. So I'm going to take it from outside the organization. Somehow I have found myself in a speaking circuit at college classes for MPA students. I don't really know what happened, but I don't know. Here I am. And so I have actually developed some relationships by going and speaking to some of these classes. And then with the Texas City Management Association, as part of our annual conference, we have an intercollegiate bowl where we have a lot of students come and they compete and they have a showcase. And as part of that, they have to talk to us. And so it encourages them to just send us LinkedIn messages and say, hey, I need to talk to you for 20 minutes. Will you sign this form? And I'm like, yep. And that has actually kind of caused a lot of ongoing conversations, especially when they're starting to enter the workforce and looking for jobs. And so I think just being part of the different organizations and, really having this passion of wanting to mentor that next generation. I guess I just started seeking them out. So now I'll just like go talk to students at the TCMA events or anywhere else that we are at, because I was them once, and I wanted so badly to be where I'm at now that it's really cool to for the whole thing to come full circle. So if you want to be a mentor, go where people are that are looking for one, I guess is my piece of advice.
Yeah.
TCMA makes it very easy for us because they are very much involved in our annual conference. But there's also other training opportunities, local assistance events. But to Paulette's, the easiest place is starting your own organization. And then, just start to kind of grow your own.
Speaking of which, Caitlan, you're speaking at the annual ICMA conference in Long Beach this October, right?
I am, yes, on mentorship.
Well, what a small world.
So 8:30 a.m. Monday morning, myself, my boss, and 2 other mentors will be talking about leaving a legacy and kind of mentorship through the ages.
Can you tell me a little bit more about what that means, leaving a legacy through mentorship?
Yeah, this is going to be a very interesting mentorship panel that's a little different than the one that we'll see next week during our webinar. But this one is going to be Leonard Martin is the retired city manager, and he has mentored so many people in the profession, not only in Texas, but in other states. And then he mentored the city manager of the Colony. His name is Troy Powell. Troy Powell mentored Matt, and Matt has mentored me. So we actually have this lineage of how mentorship should work and how you should pour into that next generation below you. And so that's kind of what we're going to be talking about. I'm sure there will be some funny stories. There'll be a lot of jokes. It'll just be a really good interactive session of what mentorship means to us and kind of how we've been able to progress through our careers and lean on, others in hard times and talk through those challenges, just showing kind of this direct lineage. So really excited about it. It's early Monday in California. I promise it's going to be worth it. But yeah, please come. It'll be super fun.
That's a unique take on mentorship that I haven't actually heard before. So I'm looking forward to checking that out. And registration is open, so feel free to join us. And it's also going to be a really great opportunity to network with people, to get to meet other people in local government. It is a local government conference. So if you are a student, if you are a city manager or anything else in between, that's going to be a great opportunity for you to meet people and maybe start up a mentor-mentee relationship through that conference as well. Well, does anyone have any final thoughts that you'd like to share before we head out for the day?
I think people have a tendency to make things too formal. And so I just wouldn't leave you with that thought that to have a mentoring relationship, either the mentor or the person being mentored, it doesn't have to be a formal setup. And so, in fact, I think it's almost better when it's not. I mean, there's several folks that I mentor, and really that's how they all started. Was I met them through Taylor Law keeps popping into my mind. She interviewed for an internship when I was in Joshua, and she went to Richardson, but oh well. But I met her, and ever since then we connected, and it's the same thing. She just reaches out and sometimes to get advice, sometimes to check on what's going on with me. but it absolutely can help. It helped both of our careers. And I introduced her to Tobin Maples, who she works for now as assistant city manager. And so, don't be afraid to just start up a conversation. You don't have to. I think of the book, and I think there's another book that the person refers to this book, but the book, Are You My Mom? Are You My Mommy?
Yep, I know that one very well.
There's somebody else. It may have been in Sheryl Sandberg's book, but it says you don't have to go around asking, "Are you my mentor?" Like the book, "Are You My Mommy?" It just starts through a conversation. So that's the thought I would leave you with. Don't try to make it have to be so formal in your mind.
It can be organic.
Yeah.
Caitlan, what's your final thought?
Yeah, I think, our profession is built on helping people, and that's not just the residents we serve and our council members, but that's also our people and all others in the profession. I'm a direct reflection of everybody that has poured into me, and I'm incredibly proud of who I am and the role that they played in my life. And I hope that somebody 10 years down the line is sitting on a conversation like this and that I have played some role like that in theirs, because we don't get here alone and we don't stay here alone. Paulette mentioned earlier about how mentors don't have to be older. They can be younger or they can be your same age. And she mentioned Taylor Law. So in addition to Taylor, we kind of have a little trio of me and Taylor and Lauren Rose, assistant city manager over in Saxe. And that is my tribe of people that when I'm going through something and I don't know what to do, I will go to them, and they have mentored me through so many different situations. And so I would say, don't only focus on someone that's older than you, but look at your peer group and look at, people that are either in a different, step of life that you are, but maybe same age. They can provide just as much, if not more valuable input. So just don't be looking for a specific thing. Don't be looking for this idea of a mentor. Just be looking for someone that you connect with, that you really think could just be an addition to your life. Because I cannot thank my mentors enough. Paulette and Eric and Matt and Ashley. I don't know. I'm kind of speechless at this point. And that's really hard for me because I like to talk. And then I would be remiss if I didn't mention Kelly Cunningham, now Mazzoli. She is the one who identified me at 16 years old in the Mayor's Youth Council. Caitlan, you're going to be in public service. And we're like, nope, I'm going to go be a teacher. And she knew it. And she was the first call I made when I switched over. So it was not for her, none of this would have been possible. So mentors you will find in kind of the, just craziest places. So just be open to it, put in the work to go network and find somebody. And then when it's your turn, pour into someone else.
So everyone, say yes to the networking, say yes to the opportunities, because you never know, it could change your career and maybe even change your life. Thank you both, Paulette and Caitlan, for sharing your feedback, your advice, your experiences. That was wonderful.
Thanks for having us. This was a lot of fun.
Yeah.
And thank you all for watching. We'll see you next time.